You're listening to Get to Know World of Warships, a podcast created by Bogsy and Synpax.
Hello, hello. Welcome back, everybody, to Get to Know World of Warships with Bogsy and Borla. I, of course, am Bogsy here with my co-host, Borla. Hello, Borla.
How are you doing today, Bogsy?
I'm good. And I'm not going to spend too much time chatting about my life or my hot tub or any of that because...
I got a boat in your hot tub last night. I was pretty proud of that.
You did. You got a rubber ducky. You had a rubber ducky because you found something for next week that I'm really excited about. Little preview, everybody. Next week, the podcast, we're going to be talking to a gentleman who has thousands and thousands and thousands of battles in the Black Swan at Tier 1. So we're going to go in-depth on Tier 1 culture, mechanics, and lifestyle. I know you're all excited. So, but right now, we have a very, very special episode because, as you all know, or you should know, unless you're a baby or an idiot, that KOTS XII NA has come to a close. We have winners, and we've got reps from the top 4 clans who finished. So, without further ado, let's say hello to Representative Sageliev from Good Game Well Played GGWP. Hi, Sage.
Hello.
And then coming in number 3 is from 07's Devastating Strike, Potato.
Hi, Bogsy.
How you doing, man? Welcome back. And number 2 went to BONKS this time. BONKS, formerly known as Peds. Hello, Addi.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be here.
And the North American champions, Seal Cub Clubbing Club, SCCC, in the form of Mr. EverettWV today. Hi, Everett.
Howdy.
Wait, WV, not VW. I'm an idiot. Sorry. VW, because he's actually a bug. Okay. Great. So, gentlemen, the 4 of you have elected to join us here. We're very grateful for you being willing to throw some time in there. This was a lot of fun to cast, to watch, to be a part of. So we're going to go ahead and get started with some questions that we've got for you. First off, I'd like to give the moment to SCCC and to Everett. Congratulations on winning.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys put up a really, really good show. I was casting, so I only got to see the last couple of games, I think, for finals. But yeah, you guys put on a really, really impressive display. And I have to say, I had heard some whispers before KOTS actually happened that you guys were suffering horribly. And I think nothing could be further from the truth. You guys came out and hit it out of the park.
We hit the perfect storm, I think. Everyone played on point. We had very few mistakes. What mistakes we did have, we were able to overcome them.
Yeah. Well, you guys did an absolute incredible job. The final matches against BONKS were some of the cleanest, smoothest, games I've seen in KOTS now for 3 seasons. They're an absolute joy to watch. I believe I have all 4. I have all 4 recorded. I'll be releasing them probably over the weekend on YouTube. So if you missed it and you'd like to go back and see, those should be available there. Just both SCCC and BONKS played about the best World of Warships that I've seen so far. So do go back and check those out. And then Addi from BONKS, let me ask you, man, you guys, I mean, it really felt like it could have gone either way every single game. Do you feel like there was something that you guys maybe didn't quite get right, or was it just the dice that led to second place?
You know, I think there is always going to be an origin component, but at the end of the day, I think it was just rust from some of my players at the end of the day. KOTS this time was unfortunately scheduled around the finals season for a lot of universities around the country.
Right.
So, one thing about BONKS that a lot of people know is that the average age is quite young, about 20 or so. So most of my players had to deal with finals and put up with that and KOTS at the same time. So they didn't really have the opportunity to get practice in, I think. And that led to some rust, and which eventually led to some mistakes.
Well, if 20-year-olds rusty end up in second place, I'm terrified to think of how it would go if you guys felt like you were at 100%. So congratulations to you guys on an excellent job. Well done.
Thank you.
And then Potato, you guys came in the heavy favorites, as you guys have done. I mean, I should have done my research better. I apologize, but you guys won last year, and then you won NA last year. You guys went on and won the Verizon tournament internationally, and you've been multiple time KOTS champions, clan battle winners. So how did you guys feel coming into this season?
I mean, we obviously came in with I think a high amount of confidence after Verizon, because here's another tournament with a decent prize pool, and with the success that we had in Verizon, obviously coming to this being a KOTS format and our past KOTS history, we were at least prepared for what we knew would be coming, where everyone's putting plenty of time in and preparing strats and whatnot for our games and against us as well. So we really expected it to be a hard set of games, just we didn't think we'd be out of, I guess, the first place fight as quick as we were.
Right, absolutely. Well, you guys you came back, finished third, so you guys are going on to internationals. Congratulations on that. I have one question, though, about Verizon, and I want to know if you guys took all that prize money from the Verizon tournament, did you put it in GME or did you put it into Dogecoin?
Those fundings are currently anonymous right now. Some of those people may or may not have lost it or gained from it, so I'm sure they would like to keep those adventures secret.
Don't lie. You guys sunk the entirety of it into Italian battleship loot crates and German DD loot crates, right?
It may or may not have gone to double spending a couple of hundreds, nearly $1,000 for Christmas crates. So
amazing.
And so you have a Makarov.
He has probably 7 Makarovs at this point. So yeah.
Good Lord. We wish you a Makarov, miss. I already miss that, by the way. I already miss the delight of that. By the way, before we get to Sage with GGWP, I have it confirmed from Wargaming that they did actually hire extra moderators to police during the Verizon tournament. I don't know if you guys remember during the Verizon tournament on Twitch, the moderators were like Western gunslingers. It's just bang, 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 bang. Every time a Makarov would pop up in chat, someone would shoot it down. It was beautiful. It was like watching skeet shooting. They did actually hire extra people to do that. And last but certainly not least, over to Sage from GGWP. You guys had a great showing this time around, and this is all coming off the back of the fact that GGWP, as we found out when we interviewed you before, is a relatively new clan. So how do you guys feel about your performance during the tournament?
I'm proud of my team. Everyone showed up to scrims. Everyone put in the time and the effort to learn the strats and to build up the coordination we needed to succeed. To be honest, I did not expect us to do this well. We fought and beat some really good teams, and we also fought and lost to some really good teams. But overall, I'm pretty proud of how we did. I think we can comfortably call ourselves the best Typhoon clan on North America now.
Fair enough, man. We'll forgive you guys for Ducky Shot because you clearly have a good sense of humor. So, is Ducky Shot the oldest person in your clan, by the way?
I think it's 10 fingers, 10 toes at 40.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Does he ever feel weird about only having 10 fingers, 10 toes, and not 12 like the rest of us?
I don't know.
All right.
His yearly trip to Chernobyl. Maybe it'll fix it someday.
Oh God. We'll ask him next time. Well, okay, enough fooling around and gushing and fanboying from me. Boiler, you want to start us off with a real question?
Yeah, so kind of a simple starter. Did everybody here vote to ban the Petro? Or I guess we could start with Sage backwards. Anybody vote anything different?
I mean, it's pretty clear what that global ban system was designed to ban. I'm not going to go against that. We definitely banned Petrol. It has no place in comp.
Yeah, how about you, Potato?
Yeah, we wanted the fucking dump truck out of here, so.
And Addi, Petro?
Without a doubt.
Everett?
Of course, Petro. We don't want that.
So let me go back through you guys. if Petro had been banned automatically, or you were given a second ban, Everett, what do you think you would have considered for a ban?
Probably would have been Moskva. We are not a fan of 12-kilometer radars, and Moskva is probably the strongest one after Petro.
Okay. How about you, Addi?
Similar thought process, but instead of the Moskva, probably the Nevsky. I think the ability to combine its strengths with other ships is just too much to handle in a comp setting anyway.
Yeah, Potato.
I'm gonna go a little off from them, from the Russian cruisers. I actually think Harugama would have been a nice ban.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Sage?
We Nevsky, 100%. It counters the smoke plays and such that are fun to pull off.
So let me ask you something else, especially, I guess this would be 07, and this would be for Potato and also for Sage. What did you guys think about the double elimination setup and the way that all worked out in the games that meant? Maybe start with Potato.
Well, for us, we definitely liked it after Saturday's games. Having that double elimination bracket there definitely saved our ass. I think the number of games being played, fine. I like the idea of the bracket. I don't necessarily know how to set up the bracket to maybe make it better, or just simple improvements of it. But so far, with my experience of the double elimination, I had no issues with it.
And how about you?
Double elimination is good for a tournament, I think. It adds more games to watch. It makes more interesting matchups as well. I do think that the first few brackets of the double elimination should not be best of 5 on the second day, just because of the sheer amount of games you end up playing, especially on Mother's Day, which
That's
is
a good point.
not a good day for a video game tournament.
Yeah, and I guess a question for Addi and Everett. Maybe we'll start with Addi. Do you think starting the double elimination at round 16 is good? And again, we're talking about in a vacuum. Obviously, for 07, that was a benefit for you guys to play through and get to third place. But like in a normal tournament, if we were looking into that, not knowing, looking back what the results were and who got to play through, do you think round of 16 is the right time to start those double eliminations, or would you start it later? Addi.
Do I go first here?
Yeah.
I honestly think starting at round of 16 is fine. If people take a look at what happened in EU this time around, where in round of 16, or their knockout stage as they call it, some of the favored clans that were favored to go top 3, top 4, whatever, they ended up relatively in the same bracket there. And so the unfortunate circumstance meant that I think the top clan from previous tournaments got knocked out pretty soon. Another one following thereafter. And so if we didn't have a round of 16 double in there, then that might prevent the true best teams out of that server from advancing to go to international, something like that.
Yeah, I see that. How about you, Everett?
I think round of 16 was fine for starting the double elimination. I did think how we did it was good, where the losers bracket didn't have the chance at first place, since I think the first place should show that they didn't lose a match, so they should be able to make it number 1. Unlike I think RU had it differently, where they had the winners and loser brackets made. They played each other, but for some reason they didn't have the winners having to have to lose twice in order to be defeated, and I didn't think that was very fair for them. But
That's interesting. I never took a look at the. You talking about the RU server?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really pay any attention to theirs. SEA and CIS are pretty much foreign servers to me. I pay a little bit of attention to EU, and I was I think it was Addison who just mentioned that it was a bit of a surprise to see TWA get knocked out early. TWA banned CV, who generally places very high, if not at the top of EU. So, yeah, that is interesting to have it set up that way for winners and losers brackets. Speaking of how things are set up, might as well just go ahead and transition to the next question here. This is the first time that we've done KOTS where Wargaming was actually in charge. I'm kind of curious to find out if you guys had any sense of how it went and any opinions on what you think maybe has improved since Wargaming took over. Any sense of this was left sort of out in the cold, or maybe this was overseen? Sage, why don't you give us your opinion on that?
I'm not entirely sure on how it works, but I'm pretty sure that Wargaming didn't really have much influence in terms of NA COTS, whereas they were very, very involved in EU COTS. But I didn't really notice any significant differences in terms of how the tournament was run, Wargaming versus just the alt admins.
Okay. Potato, how about you?
The only thing I think Wargaming might have been able to have a part in for at least NA COTS was, I do know there was a lot of training room issues going into the first weekend, so maybe having, I don't know, a half a dozen or a dozen accounts just ready to go sooner would have been nice to have. I know TNG definitely had issues there with their with their games.
Yes, we did.
So at least having that set up sooner, I think, would have made sense, at least in hindsight. But then again, it is hindsight. So,
Foxy, I didn't hear about your issues.
Oh, stop it! Oh, stop! That's the most grandma thing I think I've ever done right there. But oh, stop it! You calm down. Yes, what Potato's referring to and what Borla's alluding to about the training room issues was that I think in group stage 2, TNG was slated to face XPN, and 7 of 9 TNG players could not enter the training room, and it was about a 2-hour process to try and just get them into the room to play, which resulted by the end of it, it resulted in a forfeit for one of the games against XPN. But I mean, it was interesting because I think they learned, and they did learn this, by the way, that they need to have press accounts set up sort of on standby for if there are issues like that in the future. And I believe that they have went ahead and done that. But yeah, it was to their credit. I want to throw out there to their credit that the KOTS admins they did their best to try and help fix the issue, and I ended up contacting one of the Wargaming South America employees who contacted Wargaming NA, who called Wargaming EU, who then called Mr. Conway at about 1:30 in the morning and woke him up to authorize press accounts being released. And so they did make a pretty big effort to help rectify the situation as best as possible. But apparently we were not the only ones having training room issues, by the way. I guess on the SEA server earlier in the day there were some training room issues, so hopefully they'll take a look at that. Oh, actually, I think I can tell that one of the Wargaming employees did actually get back to me specifically, I think 2 days ago maybe, and said, I think it was Mara Draco he's the community manager for South America. I believe he told me that they did identify the problem and it's slated to be fixed in an upcoming patch. So yeah, I think I'm allowed to say that. I hope I didn't just get myself kicked out of CC. Well, anyway, Everett, what do you think? Did you guys? How did it feel from your end?
To be honest, it seemed exactly the same, and I think that's pretty much to be expected. Because if I recall, the NA COTS are still not really under Wargaming like the EU is. They just work closely together. So everything's the same, including our wonderful Swiss rounds.
I see. Addi, how about you? Did you... Oh, sorry. Did you want to say something, Borla?
No, I just... do you not like the Swiss rounds, or is there a different idea that you have for that? I was just curious the way you said that.
I know the streamers don't like it, because Gaishu in particularly, they like to joke about how much waiting there is just to find a game versus... when he casted EU, they always had a game going on they could cast.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's interesting. Addi, did BONKS notice anything or have any opinions on how KOTS felt now that Wargaming's taken it over?
I'll echo what a lot of people said before me, that it really was pretty smooth, the transition. I think the only thing that we took notice was like the improved bot for picking and banning stuff, but I don't know whether or not that was Wargaming led or whether or not that was just something that the previous admins and adjudicators came up with.
So let me ask you guys, the ship lineups, we had the global ban that we talked about with the Petro. We had the single bans where each team got to blind ban one ship. So if blind ban meaning, for those who don't understand, that each team picks that ship without knowing what the other team is picking. And so it's possible they could pick the same ship or they could pick two different ships, and whatever ships are picked are banned for both teams. Combining that with the ships that were not allowed, we have ships that are not available any longer, or ships that are new in the last 6 months for resources are not allowed. You guys happy with that sort of lineup, those ships being banned? Would you do it a little differently? Let's start with Potato. What are your thoughts on the way those bans are worked, both with the new ships not available, and the single blind ban picked by the teams?
Well, I think it says a lot about the ships and what sort of favoritism there is for comp. Because if you look at all the ships that ended up being banned, it was some pretty common stuff for last King of the Sea. It would be Smolensk, Thunderer, Petro, things that you could basically just make a whole team out of and run fairly well in the tournament and get pretty far in, I think. So having those ships out of the pool gives a lot more options for at least teams, I think, because it opens up, smoke strats like we saw with GGWP, where they'd take the two Des Moines around, or, when they did their game 2 against us on Sunday, where they brought all the Clevers and Marceaus around. There's not much you can really do if you have like Smolens and Smolensk and Petros just sitting around every island. It sort of just kills the flow of the game, I feel. So getting some of those ships out there, or out of the pool, definitely lightens up the mood and definitely promotes flow of game, I think, better.
How about you, Addi?
I'll be completely honest. In previous competitive environments and other competitions, we relied pretty heavily on some of the ships that were removed, and for good reason. I mean, Smolen was, and is still, probably one of the best tier 10 destroyers in terms of comp, because of that radar and that DPM and that speed boost and all those things bundled up into one. But it did present a unique challenge in trying to work around those ships being missing from the meta and from the pool of ships being available. I mean, I think we relied pretty heavily on Yu Yang, and I know a lot of streamers joked around about, oh, look, it's a tier 7 destroyer Yu Yang being fielded. But at the end of the day, having those that spotting is so crucial. But I think the way that the bans worked out this KOTS was done pretty well. I think there's no advantage that one team might get in terms of going first, because, as you said, the blind bans were implemented this time around.
Glad you brought up the Yu Yang. If you go back to episode 12, I think I'm the lone person on Sink a Ship to sink the Yu Yang, because it was not too long after it got nerfed so heavily. And I'm like, you might as well just take it out and shoot it. You already killed it.
Just take it out behind the shed.
Right. But people found uses for it this time. How about Sage? What do you think about the way the bans are managed?
I think the ban system was pretty good. I would like to see teams doing 2 ship blind bans. Just because there are so many ships that are essential parallels of each other, like Yamato and Shikishima, Salem and Des Moines to a lesser extent, Moskva and Stalin, and so on. And I feel like if each team has 2 blind bans, then they can more effectively ban a certain archetype of ship that they don't want to fight, as opposed to simply forcing the enemy team to take an inferior version of the ship that you don't want to fight.
Right.
Like if you have 2 blind bans and you want to, I don't know, ban 32mm overmatch because you want to run Conqueror, you can ban Yamato and Shiki, and that works. But right now, if you ban Shikishima, you're going to be forced to fight Yamato, or if you ban Yamato, you're going to be forced to fight Shiki. Which I feel kind of goes against the point of a ban system.
Yeah, and the more content they put out, the more of these ships we have that are very similar to each other, to exactly what you were speaking of. Everett?
I like the ban system much better this COTS. So if you remember last COTS, it was each team gets 2 bans and they're known. And not only that, they were before each game. So if you run, say, a cheese strat the first game, like Clever Marceau's, the next game, the other team can just ban those 2 ships and you have to think of something different. So if the team doesn't do their research in what you're running, they'll be stuck with their bans the entire match. And I think that was a lot nicer this go around.
So you're in favor of the bans being for the entire series?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that needs to happen. Doing bans by map takes so long.
Yeah, I actually, just to interject for a second, let Borla go back to it. I actually couldn't remember while we were casting it. I couldn't remember if the previous seasons there was a unique ship ban every map, or whether it was for the whole sequence of matches. And so I'm glad that it's out. It actually was every map you could choose. You could react to and try to ban the strategy of the previous map, correct?
Correct.
Wow.
So let's say last COTS versus 07 on Crash Zone Alpha, we ran Kleber and Marceau's, I think just one of each, but after that game, 07 banned them both for the rest of our games.
Yeah. Sorry,
so
Borla,
let me
go
ask
ahead.
you guys. Yeah, let me ask you guys then. With those ship bans in mind, I'll just start with Addi. What is your strategy for deciding what you're going to ban in those blind ban situations? Then is it based just on the clan? Is it on something or on the team that you're playing? Is it something that you do specifically based around what you're going to do, or what thought process goes into that?
Sure. Well, I think there's a couple of factors that determine what ship that we want to ban, right? For one, we want to ban a ship that counters the strat that we're using, but we also want to ban a ship that is crucial for the enemy team, right? So it's this two-way kind of thing that determines what ship we want to ban. We don't want to make the enemy. We want to make the enemy try to keep them on their toes, right? If they rely really heavily on, say, like a Radar Yu Yang, then we ban Radar Yu Yang to see what that changes in their lineup. But we also don't want to drastically change what they want to do because of banning that ship, or else we're just going into battle blind again.
Sage, what about you guys?
Kind of depends. Later on in the tournament, we started banning based on what we wanted to play. As opposed to looking at what the enemy team runs and trying to find something to weaken them. We just looked at what we wanted to run and then how we wanted to force the enemy team to play around that. So, for example, we really enjoyed playing with the Smoke Des Moines. So we'd ban Nevsky, which is a ship that really punishes Smoke Des Moines. Of course, that kind of backfired on us against Star Brazil, because then they banned Des Moines on us, and we banned Nevsky, and then there were no more good smoke cruisers left. So there's definitely ways to improve on that system. Against MIO, though, we found out one of their battleship players only had an Ohio, so we banned Ohio to force their battleship player into something else and force someone else into a battleship.
Wow.
That's a little next level. I don't think you run into that too much with top teams, but way to do your homework and take advantage of it. How about you guys in 07?
It's always usually just, what do we want to run? What's effective against us, and what has the other team been running that we've seen streamed in games, and you make your decision based on that, whether or not it something's going to be an issue for you or not.
Yeah, sure. Everett, how about you guys?
I'll go on what Sage comments on his target bans. I mean, last COTS, that sounds exactly what happened to poor Jake with the minnow bans. But I mean, we only banned one ship the entire tournament, and that was of course Moskva, because all of our strats revolved around not wanting 12-kilometer radar. And as I said, I think Moskva was the strongest 12-kilometer radar since the Stalingrad nerf.
I want to jump in for a second there. Since specifically you guys said you banned Moskva just because of that, those high velocity guns and the 12-kilometer radar, do you feel as though the Stalingrad nerf to radar, did you really feel that when you were up against one in game?
Oh, it's not so much the radar nerf, it's the fire prevention, the captain change.
Ah, okay.
It, if
Having
you
the
saw
longer
what we
fires and
did-
not get rid of one of them, yeah.
Yeah, if you saw what we did to poor Stalingrads when we smoked up in front of them with cruisers, it wasn't pretty for them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that we've discussed a little bit about some of these ships that were missing due to the fact they're no longer available, like Smolensk, Somers, Thunderer, what have you, we did actually see quite a few ships returning to the meta that you don't generally think of as competitive. Specifically, you guys mentioned the Yu Yang earlier. Addison mentioned the Yu Yang, and it was great to see that. We saw smoke Yu Yangs coming in. We saw radar Yu Yangs coming in. That was great to see. We saw a couple of teams, even up in the very top, using boosters on certain maps as another version of those smoke DPM cruisers that we touched on a little bit. The one that was really exciting for me, and I'm just going to editorialize for a second and then hear what you guys have to say about it in general, was the Z52. There were, I believe, 2 maps where the Z52 was somewhat common, and one was Trap, and the other was Crash Zone Alpha. No, not Crash Zone Alpha, sorry, Northern Waters. So I want to start with Addi just because I recall watching you guys use this more often than not. Were you guys happy to sort of see some of these ships that are a little more unusual come back to the meta? What was the rationale behind bringing some of these guys back up from the graveyard?
Now, I'll first touch on the Yu Yang and then move on to the Z52.
Please.
In that order. But for the Yu Yang itself, it was primarily because the Smolen was out of the the list of available ships to be picked from. And we wanted that to stand in for a Smolen when paired with another ship. But that was mainly the thinking behind the Yu Yang. And for the case of the Z52, in specific maps, it does have that area denial thing with that 6-kilometer hydro. And especially with maps where one of the caps has an island in the middle, that prevents a lot of shots going into it. It has the potential of being very strong.
Sure. Sage?
We used mainly Yu Yang and Worcester from that list. Smoke Yu Yang is actually really good with the legendary mod, because your smoke downtime is really, really negligible. But on the other hand, the problem with that is that the smokes don't last that long, so the Yu Yang needs to stay really close to the cruisers. But of those ships, our definite favorite to use was the Worcester. That much DPM is always going to be good. Even with the IFHE nerfs, it still just outputs so much damage onto enemy ships. And stuff like Stalingrads or even enemy battleships just melt through the ship. So I'm really happy to see that ship back into the meta.
Yeah. Everett, how about you?
Yeah, I'd say Z52 came back hard because of Smolen being not able to play. Since Radar YY can kind of do the same thing as Smolen, but it gets punished a lot more than Smolen, since Smolen has the heal, it has the super speed boost to get dodge. So you could use a Z52.
Yeah, very good. And Potato, last but not least.
Not having Smolen and Petro around definitely frees up a team's abilities to deal with boats and, be a bit more creative with strategies and, how they go about games. I think definitely allows, ships like Wooster to come around and, have a place, because you can actually do damage to things rather than, just sit there and, hold your left mouse button for 5 minutes and just watch a thing, back up around a corner and go, well, I guess he's still there. So.
Right. Well, I'm gonna break the rule here, and I'm gonna ask a follow-up question before I throw it back to Borla. Starting with Sage, what would it take to get you to bring a Zhao to KOTS? What would need to happen to the Zhao? What would need to be adjusted on the Zhao in order to give it a functional role in a competitive environment like KOTS?
Zhao is just questionable. It's just so questionable. It has its only utility is, in theory, you can get in close to smash a destroyer early, but It has 40,000 hit points, which is nothing. They need to give it at least another 10,000 hit points and probably some form of DPM buff or radar utility for it to even be considered an option. At least for me.
Do you think like a maneuverability buff, like maybe an acceleration buff or something like that, do you think that would in any way resolve the issue?
Not really. I mean, you bring a cruiser to come to do something, right? To do damage or to radar or to zone things off. But Zhao's DPM is, well, I think it's worse than Hindenburg's now even. And it's not super, I don't know, just bad.
Yeah,
fair enough. Range.
Fair enough, man. Potato, what would it take? What does the Zhao have to put on its Tinder profile for you to slide into its DMs?
I honestly don't think it really needs that many buffs. I would like to see, you know, better firing angles, obviously, on the boat. But I think the main reason why we don't see Zhao so much is not because the boat's necessarily weak, but usually because the metas that have evolved are just hilariously strong or, you know, very, you know, one-sided to, you know, dealing with something like the Zhao.
Okay, fair enough. Everett, how about you?
I would think the only way you could get Zhao in a lineup would be having some destroyer that has smoke and radar.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen. Jesus.
Because then you don't need the utility of a radar in your smoke to spot your destroyer. Then the Zhao can be close and dunk on it. But even then, I mean, why use Zhao when you can have a Des Moines in the smoke or a Worcester in the smoke doing the same thing?
Right, and have the added utility of better firing angles, hydro, that sort of thing. And Addi, what about you? What's the Zhao got to do? What's she got to wear to be your waifu?
Christ. You know, I just think that the Zhao is in a pretty tough spot now, because of a couple of things, right? One, just like it feels like whatever the Zhao is supposed to excel at, that there's another cruiser at tier 10 that does it better. And to go off of that, I think the only thing that the Zhao can do, like Potato said, some quality of life stuff would be much appreciated. Maybe a gimmick to throw in the mix of the box of gimmicks that we have right now at tier 10. But even then, I don't know how healthy that would be for the game. So I don't know. Zhao's in a pretty tough spot.
All right, fair enough, man.
So I got a question for you guys, and we'll start with Everett on this. So going back to either the group stage or somebody you faced in the playoffs, other than the four of you who were at the top at the end, were there any teams that you were really impressed by that you played against, or any matches where you really felt it could have got away? Who impressed you aside from the other three guys that are here being interviewed with you, Everett?
They just took away my answer. I mean, I was going to say GGWP because they put on a really good performance.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep from being a bunch of backslapping between you guys, so I'm looking for another answer.
I wasn't prepared for that.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough.
So you're gonna leave that answer blank, huh? How about you, Potato? Was there somebody aside from these three other guys who you had a really tough match with, or somebody who pressed you with something?
My hats off, definitely to GGWP. They gave us a good set of 5 games on Saturday. I will not, fault anyone for that. They definitely played their strats well. I will say the one team I really wanted to play was Dale. Just because, why not?
Sure. They did pretty well. They ended up making it to God, I can't remember what it was, 32 or 16, but yeah.
I think they made it to 32. They were in the final. Their second elimination was actually against the KSF team, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I talked to him a couple months ago on the podcast. We interviewed them. How about you, Sage?
For me, it would definitely have to be Ayame. They played incredibly well this KOTS. I think they were kind of half BN second team and then half some mercenaries from other clans.
PSV, I think it was.
Yeah, they
PSV
had
guys, yeah.
Grey Ghosto, Reimu, and then a couple of Caillou guys. but they did really, really, really well. They beat Main BN. They beat some really good teams. They gave us a really close series, so really hats off to them. They did a really good job.
Nice. How about you, Addi?
I think in my case, hats off to QQ. I think they put on a really good performance. They looked very strong in the scrims leading up to the game days. Blowski did a fantastic job doing strats and pulling his players together.
Oh,
All
yeah.
right. Very good.
I also want to chime in on this, and I'd love to hear your thoughts too, Borla. I heard that Lowski, who did the lion's share of the work for QQ7's team and was actually their shot caller. I heard that on their last day, he actually was not available. Can any one of you confirm or deny that?
Yes, this is true.
Oh,
Lowski was at a wedding.
That's such a shame.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, that's too bad.
Somebody planned a wedding and they put it on the same day as KOTS.
What a dick.
Imagine, bro.
Imagine not.
People need priorities.
Imagine not wanting to be there for KOTS because you're getting married. That's ridiculous.
When they get divorced, is somebody going to remind them they got married on KOTS?
Yeah. Oh, good Lord. So, okay. I want to throw out there, I want to throw my hat in the ring for this one as well. I got the pleasure of watching the Brazilian team Star play. I think I probably watched them play 8 or 9 games over 2 different days. And, you know, I've always been familiar with Star from Clan Battles. They're a solid Typhoon team. They had very, very, very clean and tight and precise games. Their destroyer play specifically was, I thought, they were punching way above the weight that they normally punch at, to the point where I was like getting giddy in my chair watching them play, and I was going, "It's the Star Destroyers, the Star Destroyers!" You know, like it was just great. They had their lanes mapped out for where to dump torpedoes. They were constantly cross dropping, enemy ships to the point where they just couldn't. And it was an absolute joy to watch them play. I think they ended up getting wiped by SCCC at the end. Is that right, Everett?
We faced them in the winners bracket. I think 07 then knocked them out of the losers bracket.
Is that right, Potato? Did you guys face them?
I believe that's right.
Yeah, Potato.
that's true.
Yeah, Potato. You guys beat them 3-1.
Okay.
Star is always really good. Definitely.
Yeah, they special shout out to them. They did really phenomenal job. It was a pleasure to cast their games. What about you, Borla? Anybody stand out to you?
We had a lot of fun. I just want to shout out for our KSF guys. We had a lot of guys some of them were in their first KOTS. Actually, one of the guys who ran the team was in his first KOTS, and he did a lot of prep work for us in previous KOTS and did a nice job. And so we were happy with them getting to the round of 16. We were impressed with those guys being able to do that. But we one of the things I don't think we got time to go through and talk to you guys about it too. What do you guys think about the vacating of the seeds? Do you think there's advantage to, turning down your seed and playing in the group stages, or, or should that be allowed? Or what's maybe we'll start with Everett. Do you think there's some strategy involved with doing that, some benefit to that, or is that something you would never do?
I wouldn't see us turning down seeds. I mean, and it's part in our name, but it would seem like you would be wanting to steal club.
I mean, you guys should be the ones then, right? SCCC.
Seal Club Clubbing Club.
Okay, what about you, Potato?
I can understand turning down seeds if teams are looking to get actual games in for practice against other teams that they might not be able to have time to schedule against. But
Right.
from a perspective of wanting to go for, the top spot, it's a risk, because if you lose that early, you're just out.
Yeah, or if you fall into a group with somebody who's really tough, that by a natural progression, you'd be playing much later in the tournament.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about you, Sage?
I think teams should be allowed to reject their seeds. I understand wanting to practice more. And I also think that quals in the first group stage are probably the more fun part of KOTS, just because there's less stress behind it, especially in quals. Like, if you drop one game, it's not the end of the world. Whereas there's very little room for error, like in the round of 16 and above. So if you're purely playing for the experience of playing KOTS and to have fun, and you're a pretty competitive team and you're almost certain you can make round of 16 anyways, I fully understand dropping your seed. Um, but I think it was Potato or Everett who said this. If you want to be as good in the tournament as possible, then you probably want to take the seed, just because it means that if you win your group, then you're gonna not fight another seeded team. In theory, if all seeded teams win their
Right,
group.
right, right.
That's a
right.
good point. Yeah.
And how about you, Addi?
Personally, I think there's a trade-off in terms of accepting or denying a seed. I know some teams might think pretty far in the future, like if they win their group, then they're going to face this certain opponent. I mean, personally, I would never refuse a seed. I don't think my players have the mental fortitude to slug through Swiss and beyond that. But I definitely see that there could be extra practice there. But it's definitely a trade-off, and I think it's up to the team whether or not they want to take that trade-off.
Okay, very good. That's kind of what I was had in mind to ask these guys, Bogsy. I don't know if you have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I one little thing I want to talk about before we have you guys sink a ship, and then I kind of want to talk about internationals just a little bit, find out if you guys have any predictions, if there's anything you're kind of concerned about in terms of, you know, going forward versus a different server and whatnot. But I want to specifically talk about the DD meta, as we saw a number of matches end up with 4 DDs per side. And then specifically, I want to know if you guys feel like that had anything to do with the fact that both Trap and Crash Zone Alpha were part of the map rotation pool. Those, of course, for the listeners who maybe don't remember which maps those are the 2 diagonal maps, is what I want to call them, where the cap arrangements stretch from the bottom left to the top right, and because of that, there's a little more ground to cover. And we started to notice, and we were able to actually pretty accurately predict on stream, that those maps would come up with at least 3, sometimes even 4 DDs. So starting with Potato this time, I guess, did you guys feel like there was a pretty heavy DD meta this time, that the DDs were more important, and do you think it had anything to do with Crash Zone Alpha and Trap?
Well, with maps like Crash Zone and Trap, they're just spread apart, so you don't necessarily have flexibility if, say, like your destroyer BCAP, loses the trade, to just take him out and send someone up in a decent amount of time. That could take 2, 3, maybe even longer. So 4DD metas, I think, are just inherent of larger maps like Trap and Crash Zone, where you're usually playing around more the flanks and less focused on the center. So having that extra spotting and extra speed and stealthiness of a destroyer definitely gives you pressure towards mid and early game, and even possibly just momentum into the late game by having them be able to get around the map easier than other ships.
Mm-hmm. Addi, how about you?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely seen an increase in a lot of destroyers being fielded this KOTS, but a little asterisk there is like some of those DDs kind of blur the lines between what people traditionally think about when thinking about destroyers, right? And talking about the French destroyers, like the Klebers, the Marceaus. They bring so much potential in terms of game impact, and when coupled with another traditional DD, that I think on a lot of maps, not just CZA and Trap, but I think they do have a definite place in the meta.
Right. They almost function like light cruisers, mobile light cruisers, whereas Haragumo, for example, also functions as sort of like almost like a mini Wooster in a way. Yeah. I'm so sorry, I forgot. I think I started with Potato. Sage, how about you?
I think, especially on Crash Zone, they just rotate heavy maps. When caps are big, then it's really hard to play full radar cover on them. Like, look at the map everyone hated that got banned every series, Loop.
Yes.
Loop is a garbage map because there's islands in every single cap, and it's really, really easy to set up like 4 radars onto every single cap in the map, which makes it a really boring map to play. And I'm sure you guys have seen streamers express this as well, that Loop is just a dreadful map to watch. Whereas open maps like CZA or Trap, it's more about the destroyer trades and trying to push enemy teams off of caps, like smoke plays and such. So also no Smallland. no small and so many destroyers are like a thing now.
Right.
No petrol, because petrol could just walk out of smoke screen. It gets spotted at 12.3 kilometers.
I think it's
It walks forward a
12.4
bit.
now, yeah.
It walks forward a bit and it's in radar range, which isn't very healthy for smoke ships to have to deal with. But if smoke plays are more viable, then that you need the destroyers to bring the smoke, right?
This sounds to me like you're talking shit about Petro, man. It's not cool. Why you gotta talk shit
Petrol?
about Petro?
Bro, my favorite ship in the game. I think it's great.
Should they do 2 global bans next time and just automatically put one Petro and let everybody vote on the other one?
I mean, well, hold on. That's actually a really good question. But I want to give Everett the chance to answer about the 4DD meta and Cracks on Alpha and Trap and whatnot. So, give us your thoughts, Everett, and then we'll move on to whether or not we should add an extra ban on top of the Petro.
Oh, that's pretty much the same stuff. The no Petros allowed at all really helped DDs thrive. Since last COTS, I believe Petro still had its stealth radar. I'm not sure. It might have been 12.1 spotting then. But so that just leaves Radar, Minnow, and Plymouth as the stealth radar cruisers in the game. And if they're not in smoke, they might have problems from your battleships. And those diagonal maps are really big, so you want to be able to rotate. And of course, if you're bringing 4 DDs, is Kleber really a DD?
Well, so Borla brought up a good question, and I'd love to go ahead and throw that to him. I should have asked this beforehand, but I'm gonna ask now just so we don't get surprised. Are you guys all good on time? You got another 15 minutes or so?
I'm good.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody can't? Okay. That's the real question I should ask. Is there anybody who can't do it under 15 minutes? Borla, why don't you throw that question out there, because that was a good question.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with Addi. With the ban system, and I know we're circling back to where we were talking earlier, we all agree Petro was the ban, it's the right ban. Next time, should they just say, hey, Petro's banned, now vote for a second ban, or just leave it as it is?
I definitely to address that in a couple of parts. I definitely think there should be maybe 2 global bans because of just the sheer amount of tier 10s that are in the game now. I think there's upwards of 50 now. Less so that are allowed on the tournament. But I don't know if having Petro pre-banned should be the way to go. I think Wargaming's already in the process of trying to doing some balancing factors and changes to the Petro as we speak. But I think it should just be up to the player's choice. I don't think it should be pre-banned.
Okay, very good. How about you, Sage?
I agree. I also think that the judges never let you pre-ban a ship from the start unless there's a valid not available for resources or recently added reason. 2 categories is which Petro does not fall under. In terms of 2 global bans, I'd rather just see 2 bans per series personally, 2 bans per team, because there are a lot of tier 10s, as I said earlier, and I think 2 global bans. There's no real second ship that is as bad as Petro that hasn't already been removed by the other set of rules.
Okay, yeah, and that makes sense. And you had mentioned earlier, I think it was you who mentioned that you would prefer those 2 bans both be blind.
Yeah. Blind bans is a good idea. I mean, we both banned Nevsky against 07, and 07 banned Nevsky at the same time. Whereas if one of us sees the other person banning Nevsky first, then might give an unfair advantage of, I get to pick a second ban.
Yeah, very good. So, Potato, your thoughts?
I'm gonna agree that I don't think Petro should just be automatically banned going into, further tournaments. But I do like the thoughts of a global ban. I think whether or not you have a second global ban though depends on what you do for, game or series bans. So like Sage said, if you have 2 bans per series, I think that would make up for having 1 global ban. But if you have 2 global bans, maybe you only do 1, because if you have 2 and they're blind or not, you could really take away a lot of possible potential from a team, or just the game in general.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think that there's a good argument for that. What about you, Everett?
It's pretty much the same. It shouldn't just be banned instantly forever, because you never know what balance changes they might do to it. And it's indifferent to the double blind ban. It would help us because we could get rid of more ships that we don't like.
Yeah, and I think the blind ban is nice because the potential is there. You're not banning a full, 2 ships or 4 ships if people pick the same thing. And for those guys who are wondering, I believe there are 53 tier 10 ships that are currently out there, 6 of which are CVs. So we're talking like 47 surface ships. I don't think we have to ask people if they want to keep CVs banned from KOTS. I think that survey question is going to have a 98.7% the same answer on that.
I don't know. I think Addi might be a closet CV main. We'll just have to see.
I don't know, man.
Don't ask, don't tell.
Well, so let's do this. This has been a lot of fun, you guys, and I think that the folks who like our show and listen, I've said it before that the majority, from what I've gathered, the majority of our audience tends to be folks in the relatively competitive community. So I'm sure a lot of them are grateful for getting a little insight into how you guys approached, how you guys approached KOTS that led to your success. But a number of them are actually folks who are not very experienced with competitive, maybe just randoms, and they're sort of interested in clans, and that's how they got here. So I really appreciate you sharing what you've learned and what you experienced, because the feedback that I get often is that was very helpful. So thank you all very much for doing that. What I'd like you to do now is sink a ship. So this is personal. This is not clan-based. This is not KOTS-based. It can be anything. It can be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or Black Swan, if you so choose. What one ship would you like to take out of the game, and why? I'd love to start with Sage this time. Please, go ahead. And I know you already did this once, so be creative, okay?
No creativity here, sorry. Hakuryu, obviously. Tier 10 camp battle season coming up with CVs. Hakuryu is probably going to be the strongest one, so just not having Hakuryu will make every surface ship player have a bit more fun.
Fair enough, man. Potato, how about you? I don't think... I think when we brought you on in like episode 5 or 6 or whatever it was, I don't think we were playing Sink a Ship yet. So
no, it was like poach sim packs or something, and I remember offering him cookies, and I do believe he took them.
Oh, is that why he left?
Is that where he's at?
Yeah, is that where he finally took you up on the cookie offer?
No wonder I don't have cookies.
So what's your ship?
I think a ship that would definitely. I would like to see go, at least from random battles and like ranked, is every Yoshino player. Just please go away. Please go. You have 20-kilometer torps, like 23-kilometer gun range, and you're just always off the map. Or like you're just going in. I don't know why. Just please go away, Yoshino.
Wow. We long ago we had, for those of you who like the podcast, long ago we actually had B-Ray from SCCC, I believe. Came on and taught us all how to Yoshino, and he's
cut to the heart right now.
Absolutely, I think he might be playing a tiny violin in the background right now. Well, Everett, what's it gonna be for you? What are you thinking?
This is an easy choice, Thunderer.
Thunderer. Why?
Oh, what reason is there not to sink it?
You mean it's not
it has
perfectly
your
balanced?
30-millimeter overmatch, your accurate guns, cruiser rudder, super HE. I mean, there's so many different things about it that makes it just not fun.
You think the nerf to 21-kilometer range is going to be enough?
No, not at all.
No. Okay, fair enough. Addi, how about you?
Everett stole my choice, but I get irrationally angry every time I see a Thunder. I don't know why, but I think it has something to do with the reasons that Everett listed.
Yeah, I think I know why you get irrationally angry every time you see a Thunder. Pepperidge Farm knows why. Pepperidge Farm knows. Yeah.
Oh, poor Hattie. But yeah, Thunder would be the ship that I sink.
All right, fair enough. Oh, did you say poor Hattie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We don't talk about it.
Yeah, Addi is talking about Hattie. Sergeant Hattie is a member of BONKS who played throughout the series, and God bless him, he was the subject of the most popular clip I've ever had from my stream, where I was irrationally getting angry at a Des Moines for not wanting to play a bit more forthrightly and aggressively. He says, "I'm not going out until the Thunderer is dead." And so I sarcastically and childishly decided to type into chat, "Oh, is that it? Sure, fine, let me just do that for you." And then I take a snapshot at Sergeant Hattie about 20 kilometers away. Hattie's in a Thunderer and I'm in Ohio. So I just took a snapshot and then sit back in my chair on stream and start bitching about the state of the game, only to completely zero out Sergeant Hattie from full to dead. And it was exciting enough that I think it's sitting just at about 2,000 views now for a clip. But he was a very good sport about it. And actually, I had the pleasure of watching him make, I think, 2 dev strikes in his Ohio during KOTS. So he's paying it forward, I suppose. Little shout out to Hattie. Thank you very much for being a good sport about that. Appreciate it. Well, guys, I think the last thing I want to sort of talk about, and I mean, to be honest, we can dispense with the one after another. We can just sort of free talk about this. Is internationals, because SCCC 07 and BONKS will be going to internationals representing the North American server against EU, Russia, and the Southeast Asian server. Things are different. As you may recall, as everyone who watched last KOTS Internationals or even the Verizon tournament, the other servers have distinctly different ways of going about things. So, I mean, maybe we'll just ask Potato, as 07 has been in internationals a number of times. Let's just start with Potato, and let's just have a conversation, if you don't mind, about what sort of things to expect from CIS, from EU, from SEA, going into internationals.
Well, what I've noticed is definitely that EU looks at games as a whole. I think probably the best as a region. They understand usually, like, okay, this is our timetable for this, and they want things to happen, within, this amount of time, or else they've either conceded that, the game's over, or they just start, making, some hero plays. Russia and SEA, you'll just see a Kleber rush or, a Kremlin rush, and they're like, okay, go, and they do it.
I recall the Kleber rushes in KOTS Internationals last year. It blew me away. The Russians would hit the speed boost on the Kleber, they'd take a cap, and then they're like, okay, who can I YOLO now? And it was really astounding.
It's entertaining, but also frustrating, because I know what the opposite end of it is, but I've also been able to do it. So,
right. I noticed also that I think it was the last match of EU's finals, the winning team, which I believe was Rain, brought a Plymouth to somewhat good effect. Can any of you guys actually imagine bringing a Plymouth?
Not at all.
No?
A little bit of crickets there. A little bit.
I don't know. It could be good, but it's also not.
Is it just underwhelming? I mean,
It's almost...
It's so much
Sorry to cut
utility,
you off.
but so little damage, basically.
It's almost like why when you have Minnow, right?
Sure.
Minnow's got, the better radar. It's got the better rate of fire. Sure, Plymouth has more shells, but so what?
Yeah.
Minnow has the super heal.
Well, Plymouth does have the benefit of having smoke and radar, correct?
Yes.
I actually don't have it yet, so I'm I spent all my steel on a Yamato camo like a year ago, like a dumbass.
Simpax is still shaking his head somewhere.
Yeah, if he's listening, he's literally just going, ugh. But so I'm actually not super familiar with the SCA server. I've only seen a handful of matches at the end of that. I mean, do you guys? I hear it's very battleship focused in randoms and in ranked and whatnot. I mean, does anybody know how they go about approaching competitive like KOTS?
Who, sorry? CEA?
SCA, yeah, Asian server.
Personally, I just remember waiting in between games for these past couple of weekends and getting pinged by my SEA friends, and they send me like screenshots of the minimap. It's like, yes, there are 14 Klebbers for this specific match. I was like, okay.
You've got to be kidding me! Like full Klebber comp?
Well, it wasn't like I'm kind of boosting up the numbers a little bit, but looking at the minimap, you just see a lot of triangles.
Oh, good lord. Kleber, I mean, I don't feel like it was like a scourge on the NA server this time. I saw lots of Klebers, and I saw them used to great effect, but I assumed that was mainly because of what we discussed earlier with Crash Zone Alpha and Trap being two of the maps in the map pool, so you just see them more often because they have the ability to reposition so quickly. I mean, our heavy Kleber comps, is that a thing still?
I don't think we saw that at all in KOTS, like you did in past clan battle seasons. I don't know if anybody else saw those.
For Kleber comp, I don't know. In KOTS, there's just more ships to shoot them, is the problem. When it's like a 7v7 in clan battles or a 6v6 in CV clan battles, or ship-wise, there's like less actual DPM that can be exerted on the Klebers, and it's a lot easier to isolate like 3v1s with your Klebers.
Yeah, makes sense. Well, gentlemen, I think that might be it. Boyle, you got any questions for these hoodlums?
No, thank you guys for coming on, and best wishes to the three of you who will be playing next. Go make NA proud.
Hell yeah, brother!
Thank you very much.
Hopefully we get to, if we get to face off again, that means at least one of us, or both of us, will be getting some sort of money. So hopefully that can happen.
Well, we're pulling for you guys. Yeah, we're pulling for you. It's going to be exciting. I'm going to make a shameless plug here and say that I will not be casting the matches this time around, this weekend. I was fortunate enough to be offered a slot as a talking head pre- and post-match along with Sea Raptor, Stats Bloke, and Private Penguin. Private Penguin is a EU caster. I believe he's German. Stats Bloke, of course, he is from the lovely British Isles, and Sea Raptor. For those of you who don't know him, he was on the podcast quite a while ago. Sea Raptor is the most professional sounding and looking man in World of Warships casting whatsoever. He's a delightful human being. So I hope you guys will tune in to check that out. KOTS Internationals is lots of fun. It's really fun watching our guys go up against the other continents and the other regions. So please show up and cheer our guys on. And with that,
so wait a minute, Boxy. You're gonna be the pregame show and the postgame show. Everybody's gonna be looking. Wargaming found out you were an actor in LA.
You're goddamn right.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm assuming it's because Maltese Night was busy, but
it's because you're dashingly handsome. That's
Are you kidding me? Did you guys see Malta pulled out the face cam for Malta pulled out the face cam for the beginning of KOTS, and I was blown away. I don't have a daughter, but I want her to marry Maltese Night. Like, as soon as I got a daughter, I'm trying to arrange that. He is a charming, handsome young man who is super positive. And why am I shamelessly plugging Maltese Night? I don't know him anything. All right, guys.
He is a cute man.
He's a fun guy, so go check him out too. But gentlemen, I want to thank you all again for coming. For Addison from BONKS, Sageliev from GGWP, good game, well played. The Potato 69 from 07 Devastating Strike, and EverettWV from SCCC Seal Cub Clubbing Club. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. And good luck to everybody this weekend, and we will see you next time, next week, hopefully we're gonna talk tier 1s next week, guys. I'm stoked.
We're going from KOTS Internationals to
tier
Black
1s.
Swan.
Hell yeah. So we'll see you guys hopefully next week on Get to Know World of Warships.